看到这新北市有传出枪响，不过在这之前，现在您感受到明显的剧烈摇晃，主要是呢现在在北部地区，尤其在台北，现在呢发生了有地震的情况，地牛发生。那么现场你们可以看到呢，其实现在我本人在现场几乎站都站不稳了。那尤其我们的。
Well, hello everyone. Nice to have you with me once again. As I mentioned last week, this one is called 3B, which you just saw. This was part of my trip around the Taiwan coast, going from Yilan to Kaohsuing, which is in the south. And as I mentioned before, this part of the trip was only supposed to be 9 hours and 30 minutes or 35 minutes. Well, it didn't end up being that. It ended up being much longer. In fact, it ended up taking more than 16 hours. Now, as we saw at the beginning, I was showing you a little bit about the large earthquake that we had here on April 3rd at around 7:58 in the morning. Now, I was in Taipei, and boy, did I ever feel it. Water was sloshing from the fish tanks. My cup of coffee, which I'd only filled a few minutes earlier, fell on the floor and splat. There was a lot of shaking, even though we were nowhere near the epicenter. That's how strong this earthquake was, even the aftershocks that we had after. Now, the road that I was taking to go south on the east coast of Taiwan was actually closed for quite some time because many parts of it were covered by huge boulders and landslides that have happened. Now, landslides on this part of the road going south is actually not that uncommon. As we're going around, you can see still some of the damage at this part where there was a rock slide, which the sign still hasn't been replaced yet. You can still see some road damage along the side of the road. Now, when they did open this road, there was traffic control. And you'll see that in a few minutes. With the traffic control meant that the road was only open at certain periods during the day while they were doing repairs and clearing the debris. But sadly, even though the night before I left, I checked on the government website to find out what the hours were for the traffic control and kind of timed it so I can get there when the barrier opened. Well, there was another landslide that actually happened a little bit further, so it ended up taking much longer. Not a big landslide, but a smaller one. So I had to wait. Now, I have to say, I do love this road. I've taken it a number of times, but usually going in the other direction. But going south on this road, I think, is much, much nicer. And you can see as we clear the tunnel, this tunnel area here, there were actually some cars that were trapped in here because at either end of the tunnel, it was closed off because of a landslide. So, I mean, that could have happened to me when I was going through, but I mean, of course it didn't, but it's a safe place to be. So the area where the traffic control began, I knew where it was because there was one section of this road that actually had a considerable amount of damage. And it's just after clearing this tunnel, which I have to say was actually quite nice. And it was odd because the other times that I've traveled this section of this road, there was quite an amount of traffic. And I was thinking to myself, well, either people are taking the new expressway that was built, which I told you about, I think last week. I said it's not very nice because some of the tunnels are like 25 kilometers long and the air quality is absolutely horrendous and it's a little bit slow. And the views, well, there's not really much of views. Now, you see the mountain in the background. Now, that mountain would actually be more green than it is. But because of the earthquake, it shook a lot of rock away and a lot of trees went right down to the valley. So the mountain looks very different from pictures, or rather when I took the road a while ago. See, here's another section that was, you see coming up very soon, that was actually closed off for a while. Sadly, just as I was about to turn the corner, well, my SD card was full. And all my SD cards were full, because I'd forgotten to do something the night before, which was transfer over everything to an external hard drive that I carry with me when I travel. So just as I turn this corner and pass the police station, yeah, my SD card just decided to, well, there wasn't any more room. There's nothing I can do about it. So there's a few, I think about 2 or 3 kilometers that, where the point stops, that, well, I couldn't record any video. It was right here. There we go. Just, yeah, it just stopped recording. Now, the thing is, when you're planning a trip and if things go wrong and you get stuck somewhere, sometimes it's not a bad idea. So it was just after I passed this police station where they had the notice. You're going to see the times go by of when there was traffic control. But sadly, for 10 a.m., and I was just there at 9:30, didn't happen because they had to clear something away. I actually didn't clear it until 3:30, so I was stuck here for almost 6 hours. But you know, sometimes when you're stuck somewhere, I have to say, there's a lot of people I know that would complain about it. I was at front of the line, by the way, as you can see. But I was looking at it this way. I mean, talk about an absolutely beautiful spot to get stuck. I was one of the first to arrive, and then in a matter of no time, there were cars all the way, actually even more than you can see here. There was a car lineup of around maybe 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. But the nice thing, of course, if you motorcycle, we just go ahead of the line, which was great because then when they did finally open the road, well, there was nothing ahead of us. A lot of trucks. But I think it was a beautiful spot. We were entertained by the monkeys that were in the trees nearby, which myself and some other riders and drivers were commenting on. There were some of the other bikes that showed up not long after I did. And eventually they did open up the road, and we were able to make our way. Now, in the video that you're going to see, you're actually going to see the areas where the more recent landslide happened. It wasn't a big landslide because a big landslide could have taken a day, 2 days, sometimes even 3 days to clear. So it really wasn't that bad. But it was bad enough that they actually had to, it took about maybe 5 hours, 6 hours. So yeah, I mean, look, what can you do? You know, as I said before, as a rule, I do prefer riding by myself. Because I have ridden with people before, and that's okay. But there's nothing worse than riding with somebody who complains. Like, we were stuck here for 6 hours. Oh, we're stuck here 6 hours, complain. Well, just look, enjoy the surroundings. Enjoy the tranquility and the peacefulness of the mountains. Watch the monkeys. They're highly entertaining. I think the monkeys were putting on a show for us because it seemed like they were putting on a theater show for us. That's what it felt like. But getting back to, riding with people, as I said before, I mean, there's nothing more annoying when you're riding with somebody and they complain about, oh, we have to wait here, there's traffic control, or, oh no, it's starting to rain, I'm going to get all wet. Just go out and enjoy it. Just go out and enjoy it. There's certain things that are out of your control, and if they're out of your control, there's nothing you can do about it except make the best of it. And to be honest, even though I had to wait here 6 hours and I ended up getting to Kaohsuing just over 16 hours instead of the 9 hours or so that it was planned, I didn't mind. I really didn't mind because you'll see in the next video what I was saying, because there's an absolutely great road coming up for that. So make the best of it. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Go out and enjoy it. It rains? Fine, it rains. You get wet. But guess what? It's only water, and you can change your clothes. And if you're smart enough, I mean, we've had a lot of rain here. You always sort of carry a raincoat with you in your bags in case something like that happens. You're going to see in a moment the area where we exit the tunnel. A lot of damage from the April 3rd earthquake. And one big boulder on what part of the screen? The right side of the screen. That was a boulder that recently fell. Luckily, there wasn't anybody on that section of the road when it happened, so there was no accidents or anything, but it was enough to actually block the road. This is a new tunnel, by the way. There was an old tunnel. If you remember, go back and you'll see the entrance to the original tunnel, which was one of those narrow ones that you saw earlier on and in the last video. But this is the new tunnel that they built, which is quite nice. Great tarmac. And it's not all wet inside. The other one was wet and soggy and a little bit depressing. Anyway, as we exit the tunnel, you'll see some of the damage here. We kind of had to slow down and just pay attention to the right. So you can see here, this was where one section was closed off. There's the boulder that blocked off the road. You'll still see a lot of rocks and everything because they did an amazing job. I have to say the public works officials here in Taiwan are very good at clearing a road once it gets hit by an earthquake or a landslide. Even though there is a new expressway that goes in north and south on this side of Taiwan, this is still a major road. Now this tunnel here, there's a little bridge that I'm going over. This bridge was destroyed. It was destroyed back in May. And if you wanted to go from Yilan to Kaohsuing, what did you have to do? You had to drive or ride to the west coast of Taiwan and then south. And I could just imagine if somebody was living in Hualian, because the distance you could ride from Yilan to Hualian in maybe 4 or 5 hours, but it was taking almost 17 to 20 hours because you had to do a long journey around. But they finally opened it up and they finally built a new bridge and everything. And if you see these sections here that they built, which are not really tunnels, this is purely for safety because that is an earthquake area. So if there is a landslide or whatever, and you're under one of these sections, it's safe. The other interesting thing that they built now, I shouldn't say after this earthquake, but they did build it a few years ago, is along this road going south, there are signs that are not illuminated, that are rockfall signs. And I think I may have touched on it before. But basically what happens is, as soon as they sense there's an earthquake, these signs will start illuminating, which will tell you not to proceed any further after this sign, because the potential risk of getting hit by a landfall, is more is a greater risk of that happening. Somebody recently said to me, am I going to upload the full video of this? And yes, actually, I'm going to do that, because for these videos here, I'm just doing little short snippets, which is the reason why I'm cutting them and everything. But once this whole series of Around the Taiwan Coast is uploaded, I will be uploading, that is, all video of all the roads with no commentary. This is just a beautiful place to go. You can see right here on the right, this is where another landslide happened. Still some construction equipment, because they're still doing a fair amount of work to make the mountain more stable. And they said it's going to take at least 1 year. Now, there was one road that I was planning to show you, but sadly when I got to it, that road is completely closed off. It's to the Terracotta Gorge, and that won't be open for at least 3 years. That's how badly damaged it is. There was a little clip at the beginning in the introduction. Coming up here actually is one section that was closed off, and it took them almost 5 weeks to open, because it was just a whole side of the mountain that just all went all the way down. You can see it, which is right here. This was closed off for weeks and weeks and weeks. Another tunnel again. Quite a lot of fun, actually. I enjoy this tunnel, especially when it's hot outside, because you get in the tunnels, are nice and cool, you know. Anyway, that's all we have time for here. Now, this road is taking me to Hualian. When we continue next week, I will be showing you what I consider one of the most spectacular roads in Taiwan, along the East Coast. It is just spectacular. Once you clear the mountains and you get right to the coast itself, it is just absolutely amazing. And that's the part of the trip where I finally make my way to Kaohsuing itself. Actually, it was funny, because I was supposed to arrive in Kaohsuing at just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it ended up being around 7:30, 7:45. So I arrived at night. There was something that I had planned to do but couldn't do it because I arrived late. It doesn't matter. Like I said, things happen. When things happen, just go along with it. There's nothing you can do. You know, don't be one of these people that whine and complain about everything. So next week, join me for one of the most beautiful sections of the Taiwan coast, the East Coast that is, going south, then crossing the mountains again to Kaohsuing. Hope you enjoyed it. Oh yeah, this is another section that was closed off for quite some time. You can still see where the damage was. There's some cones on the right. It's still a little bit unstable. Actually, we had a fair amount of rain just a week before I did the editing on this, and that part was actually closed for about 24 hours. Anyway, next week I hope you join me again as we make our way south in the series Around the Taiwan Coast. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you very, very soon. So just enjoy the rest of this video.